Welcome to podcast number 199. Are you focusing on pull when you should be focused on flow? Stay with us. This podcast is absolutely crucial.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to talk about flow and takt planning. Now, there's been so many episodes about takt planning that you might be wondering, why is this one any different? And I can tell you that this one is different because I'm going to talk to you about where it fits into the entire system. And it's important to me because I've talked to so many, I'm going to call them clients or customers or people, or even people that just want advice. And they're talking to me about implementing with their superintendents the Last Planner system, which is great, and still not being able to control their project and create stability. There's a reason for this. Now, to preface this podcast, let me say this. The Last Planner system has literally changed my life. It has given me a foundation from which I was able to build on my current success, and it's gotten me to think outside of the box. It has transformed our industry into focusing more on collaboration, and it isn't complete. There are other systems, specifically Takt and Scrum, that need to be used, and there are other systems such as CPM, which need to be dethroned to ultimately have the Last Planner system reach its full potential. That's 100% true. Now, I have to say this, I said this in the book that I'm writing, and I'm going to say this now. I am very nearly a CPM expert, at least from the superintendent side. I know the theory. I know how to build good quality schedules. I know how to do the risk analyses. I know how to use Acumen, Infuse, Risk, and 360. I know how to run scheduling departments. I know all about CPM. I'm an expert with it, and it doesn't work. I'm an expert with it, and it doesn't work. Now, let's go back to this. What am I attempting to do? I'm attempting to put CPM, Scrum, Last Planner, and Takt all in their proper places. And that's what today's podcast is going to be. I've got a little fun intro here, and I've scripted it out because I think it's super cool. So let's go ahead and get into it. So in the classic book series, The Lord of the Rings, there's a menacing quote that sums up the plot of the story and the antagonist against whom the characters are fighting. The theme of what I'm about to tell you sets a nice stage for the main point of what I'm telling you today. So let's go ahead and just take a really quick trip into pop culture here. As you may remember, Frodo Baggins, under the guiding mentorship of Gandalf the Grey, and under the direction or the teamwork of the Fellowship of the Ring, he's attempting to destroy the one powerful ring. If Frodo fails with his companion Samwise Gamgee, I had to look it up on how to spell that, by the way. All of Middle Earth in the story will be doomed because Sauron, the destroyer, the bad guy, or what do you call it? The antagonist, sorry, got a little sidetracked there, will have power with the one ring, right? So the menacing riddle that's repeated throughout the stories and in the books is this: 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the dark lord and his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. So if you remember in these stories, the original elves, dwarves, and men did not know their rings were all ruled by one. To gain the ultimate power, Sauron needed to find them all, bind them, and rule them all together. That was the key. And although this, the story I'm telling you really, it's not bulletproof in the fact that, Sauron was a bad guy, but it represents, because he represents evil. But this little analogy is useful as a reference and an anchor for the things that I'm attempting right now to point out when it comes to Takt, CPM, Last Planner, and Scrum. So Last Planner, Scrum, CPM, graphical schedules, and many others ultimately work and fulfill their purpose when they're governed by one. And that one is takt planning. That one is flow. The use of takt time in scheduling. To follow the analogy, in construction, all of our rings of power are ruled by one, the ring of flow. So listen to my little funny chant, or my menacing chant or call to action, whatever you want to call it, for us, pattern after the one that I told you just a minute ago. So here you go. 3 kings for the builders under the sky. 7 roles in their collaborative halls. 9 meetings set to scale them. 1 king over all, known as flow. In the land where respect reigns supreme. 1 to rule them all, 1 to find them, 1 to bring them all in, and its might bind them. Over CPM, Last Planner, and Scrum, flow rules to bind them. In the land where respect reigns supreme. Now that's so good and so clever. I'm going to read it again. 3 kings for the builders under the sky, 7 roles in their collaborative halls, 9 meetings set to scale them, 1 king over all, known as flow. In the land where respect reigns supreme. 1 to rule them all, 1 to find them, 1 to bring them all, and in its might bind them. Over CPM, Last Planner, and Scrum, flow rules to bind them. In the land where respect reigns supreme. So I had some fun putting this together. I originally got the ring of power idea from Spencer Easton. He's a little bit genius with this, and I know it sounds a little bit silly, but this is the point that I'm going to make today. The 3 basic habits of a builder are studying the drawings, being in the schedule, and taking reflection walks daily. That person, that builder, can then interact with a system where there are 7 key positions of field engineer, project engineer, assistant superintendent, assistant project manager, project superintendent, project manager, and project director. And then 9 key meetings that the team must use in a remarkable way to create stability on the project. And the focus of respect for people and resources as the base philosophy of the project team in these meetings, meaning that the land where respect reigns supreme. Respect has to be our key foundation. And the standing tactical order of maintaining flow where we can to guide the team's efforts and all other systems. So you need this information today. I'm going to change your world. And eventually, I don't know if it's a year or 5 years or 10 years, but we are going to, in this industry, successfully put CPM back in its place and do what's right. Because I'm going to leave you with a quote. I won't explain it until I'm done with some of my entry stuff here in this podcast, but flow where you can, pull where you can't, push when you must. That's the quote. It's a little bit modified from what Taiichi Ono said, but it's flow where you can, pull where you can't, and push where you must. I want that ringing in your ear as we go into the rest of the podcast here. So real quick, what am I excited about in life? This is something I've been doing on podcasts for quite some time. I feel like it gives you a glimpse of, me and my life and builds a little bit of rapport. We have a field engineer, actually the first part, because they're COVID-19 modified. I'm not being irreverent with that. I'm just saying that we had to modify them. Instead of a 5-day immersive boot camp, we switch them into 2.5 days locally where people can go home. So I'm doing the first part of that on Thursday, Friday, and half of Saturday. Those are intense days. I won't leave you with random podcasts from the actual recording of the boot camp because I've already given you a glimpse of that. I'll pre-record some podcasts, send them your way. We'll have a fantastic week from a podcast standpoint, but I'm really excited about that because there's and I'm not selling anything. I'm just telling you, and really why I'm telling you is because I see more and more people doing more and more remarkable training. When people go into Field Engineer Boot Camp, they come out different people. When they go through that process, through that experience, they come out more whole. And I see people at church and in life and that I'm mentoring and that I'm coaching every day struggling with smoking and pornography and marriage difficulties and not giving 100%, not knowing what to do and being afraid of leaving an abusive environment where they're at work and on and on and on. And I'm like, oh, I just wish you could go to Field Engineer Boot Camp because you would experience a life-changing event specifically tailored for construction professionals. Anyway, so I am stoked that I get to go help change the lives. No, I'm not even going to say it like that. To change the lives of 25 people this next week and really make a difference in the world. And I hope that those boot camps scale to where eventually we're changing hundreds and then thousands, and we just go on and on and on. Everybody needs this camp. If I had a company, I'd say, I don't care what position you're in. You're a superintendent, you're an estimator, whatever. In fact, the companies I work with, they send all positions through this. They send senior superintendents through this because it's life-changing and it's a builder experience. Anyway, so super excited for that. Let's get into the podcast today, man. I am super stoked about this. So here's our conflict. No. What am I doing? I skipped the fans talking about feedback. I got this the other day. Fantastic person. They're doing great things at their company. He said, I discovered your podcast and book in December 2020. It has given me clarity about what we need to do to elevate the role of superintendent in our organization to be successful with lean and last planner system. And I really appreciate this. The other thing is, this person mentioned that the supers can sometimes be a lead foreman, a new superintendent, like the field folks running these jobs for mid-level projects. And in fact, he challenged me to start doing more podcasts on small or mid-sized projects to look at how that's implemented. I always talk about, well, not always, but I most of the time talk about mega projects. Part of the reason I do that is to pull down, pull to the side, pull up, wherever you see yourself in the vision of that, the information from these mega projects, because there tends to be more money, more opportunities there. So why not have all projects do that? And so that's why I usually come from that perspective. But this is fantastic feedback. And I would say, tying over to the Field Engineer Bootcamp concept, I would absolutely 100% put every one of my field builders through a Field Engineer Bootcamp in this company with this person I'm talking about. And then when they're done with that, I would put them through the Superintendent Bootcamp. Fantastic stuff. So I also forgot to say what's changing in the industry. One thing that I'm going to predict right now, and I want to be one of the first, and so mark this down, we will have to find a solution for CPM. We will have to overcome the difficulties of this failed system. And every time I say something like this, I'm like, I'm sure there are people out there. I'm sure schedulers are cursing me and business owners are like, yes, it has. It's not serving us well. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to be the one to speak up to say, hey, let's put it in its place. So here's the conflict. You're focusing on pull when you need to be focused on flow. And that's what this new book that I'm publishing will cover. But the quote is, again, flow where you can, pull where you can't, and push when you must. And so flow is Takt planning, pull is Last Planner and Scrum, and push systems are CPM. We have to get things back into the right order. The stories that I want to tell you, and this really isn't a story, I'm just going to tell you, every time I've used Takt planning, it's worked well. Every time that I've kept a project on a good flow and managed the supply chain, it has worked well. Even with trade partners that are annoyed and kicking against the pricks on this system will at the end of the job say that system worked. I used to call it the one-piece flow system. Before that, when I got the original concepts from Hensel Phelps, it was called a short interval production schedule, SIPS. The real name for it, as branded in today's environment, is Takt planning. Takt is the German word for rhythm or baton. So the principle is this. The construction industry has historically incentivized push. In Europe, and specifically in Germany, they know how to use Takt planning and Takt systems, and it works well. If you ever go to Germany, and I have, you'll see that they piece together buildings just like you're putting together a Lego set. It's all, well, not all of it, but most of it's prefabricated. They do it well. It comes out on a rhythm. They use Takt planning. It's a fantastic system. It's pretty systematic. I mean, they're great with it. CPM, I think it was in the 1960s, took hold, and people wanted to use CPM because of all the quote-unquote data that you could mine, useless data, if I might say so, that they could mine from it, and they thought that geographical or location-based schedules were too simple. But CPM is a push system. CPM inherently pushes with its famous forward and backward pass, even if it doesn't intend to. It pushes. It's a push system. And so all those CPM experts would argue with me that, through proper logic sequencing, one can still flow in the system. Even if they said that, even if they're arguing that, it's not a visual representation of flow. And it tricks the project teams into thinking there's a solid plan because it's masked by excessive detail. If you gave a 70-page P6 schedule or even an 8-page P6 schedule, they ain't going to read it. Seriously, think right now. Who are you going to give your CPM schedule to, and they're going to read it? No one. You don't even read it. As a superintendent, I would create these things, and I'd have to be focused for, like, if it's a proposal schedule for a day, planning a project in CPM takes 12 weeks. There's data showing that. There's a formula for that. For like a $60, $80 million project, it's going to take 12 weeks to build that sucker. It's a database. It's a precedence diagram. It's a huge undertaking. And when you're in there and you're tying all your logic, it is impossible for the human mind to know where all that logic is placed and have it at their fingertips, to know what's going on and to really be able to QC that. So when you're doing CPM, it's really, did I trust the original person was lucky enough and experienced enough to make it the first time? The answer is no. It ain't going to happen, right? So there's a number of things that are wrong with CPM, so it's not the 1960s, it's the 1940s, but it was adopted as a standard construction in 1965 by the AGC, and is considered the gold standard. But even with its adoption and general use, and I want you all to hear me on this. This is the inspired part. Most projects finish behind schedule, with crash landings or an accelerated push to the end that expands human and physical resources. I remember when I was working at DPR, they did a study, not of DPR projects. DPR in where I worked was an average of 4. It was great. It was like either on time or 4 days behind schedule. But they did some research on the industry. The average industry CPM schedule, the average industry project is well over 30 days, but the average was around 53 days that a project is behind schedule using the CPM as an average across the United States. I was floored. Absolutely ridiculous, unacceptable. Why do we like it? Owners feel like they have control. They feel like they can get data, even though the data is useless. So let me tell you a couple things. So why is CPM hurting us? Okay. One of the reasons is that CPM is too optimistic. I've said before in a previous podcast, like if I'm planning a Saturday, I'm like, we can do this and we can mow the lawn and I can take the kids to the lake and we can go to Disneyland and I'll take them by In-N-Out. I love In-N-Out. If you don't like In-N-Out, you don't belong on this podcast. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So go to In-N-Out. We can come home and play with toys. I'll do the dishes. I'll do a podcast. And my wife is like, oh, hold on. You are not going to get these things done. So I'm acting like CPM, too optimistic. She's like tax planning. She's like, okay, realistically, you're going to be able to go to In-N-Out, to go to the store, and to come back and do a podcast. That's it, Jason. I love you, but that's it. Don't overprogram the Saturday. Who should be planning the Saturday? My wife or me? My wife. Who should be planning the project? Takt planning. The other thing is that CPM masquerades as a solid plan simply because it looks complex. Owners and other people are like, dang, they built a 78-page schedule. It must be right. Nobody realizes or comes to terms with the fact that it's 78 pages worth of garbage and that nobody can see anything inside of it. It's too complex. You're not going to see flow. You're not going to see problems. You're not going to see errors. You're not going to see any of these things for the most part until it's a problem and you're trusting in the person that built it. The third problem is that CPM hides the plan in the complexity of its format. And CPM experts, which I'm one of, but I wouldn't say it, but you would. I'm blaming you. Your words would say, oh, you can filter it out. You can use hammock activities. You can actually put it into a tag flag format. You can. Even if you can do some of those tips and tricks, why would you? You've wasted 12 weeks making the damn thing just to make it look like a tax plan that you could have made in a day or in a couple of hours, quite frankly. But let's just say a day to have it be fully vetted, right? It's kind of like making a vegan hamburger, which I do because I've got allergies and stuff. You did all this stuff. You processed all these 500 ingredients. You over-processed it to then turn it into where it looks like a hamburger patty just to sell it and give it to a person masquerading as a real hamburger when you could have just slaughtered a cow and ground up the beef and made a hamburger. Like, CPM does not visualize the project, period, end of story. Stop arguing with me. Like, it does not happen. And it hides the plan. You can't see the plan. It's hidden. Nobody can see the plan. And then trade partners sign up to it. I don't know why, of what ungodly reason they would do that. And then they get stuck with a plan, and then we get into this infighting. So it's too complex. The fourth major problem is that CPM has too much unchecked power. Right now, it's the governing entity. Right now, owners want it. Right now, there are all these experts flying around charging $150 an hour, $200 an hour, telling you how to make the system even more complex, and it has unchecked power. It tells you what to do. And the other thing is, it fools. Going back to the optimistic point, when you go, here's what happens every job. You build a schedule in CPM. It lies to you. It doesn't take into account Thanksgiving and Christmas. It doesn't take into account the normal times that it takes to build something. You do the forward and backward pass. CPM slams everything to the left. You tell the owner, either in the proposal or in schematic design, what the duration is. Everybody falls in love with the duration, and that's not the real duration. So we start spending money on things instead of the additional 6 weeks that we actually needed to create a flow in the project. And then what happens is everybody falls in love with that. We don't bid it. We don't get paid for it. So then we enter a crash landing. We end up with a negative fee position. So CPM has way too much unchecked power. I mean, we're just blindly using it. We don't even ask if it's the right thing to do. I sound really negative about it. I still, like, if you want me to build you a schedule, like Elevate Construction can do that for you. I'll give you a disclaimer. And I found systems with scheduling teams and departments and companies to actually make the system work. But the only way you're going to make CPM work is if you have Takt as an accountability partner. I'll talk about that in a minute. The fifth thing is that CPM is temperamental. It requires schedule health checklists and all of these processes and risk analyses and Acumen, infuse, risk in 360 to go check it. And you have to check the log every time you hit F9. And it's like, oh my gosh, this program is so stinking temperamental that it can fail at any given point. And so for Last Planner, great system. It needs milestones. Scrum, great system. It needs milestones. I'm telling you not to get your milestones from P6 or Microsoft Project or CPM systems alone. Takt, and even if you have to contractually use CPM, Takt is the system from which you should get your milestones. So the story that I'm telling you is one about a good, light, transparency, and of winning, but it's really the one ring that should rule them all, because Takt is a system of respect, of creating stability and continuously improving. And the reason that construction needs Takt planning, the reason that Last Planner needs Takt planning, the reason Scrum needs Takt planning, the reason that if you're forced to use CPM, it needs Takt planning is because, and I want you to hear me on this, this is the second inspired part of my podcast. Construction has a huge supply chain, an amazingly complex and huge supply chain. So now you have this huge supply chain, and now with CPM, you're going to jockey it left and right and say, no, it's this date, no, it's that, no, it's that, no, it's that, no, it's not. Keep guessing. Wrong. We need to create stability with our huge supply chains and say, here's the flow, here are the dates, we are sticking with it, on we go. That is where we need to head in this industry. And Takt planning has not yet taken hold in the United States like it could, and it needs to be enthroned as one of the main scheduling tools to either replace the critical path method or at a minimum to hold it accountable and govern it. One of the main reasons the construction industry still produces projects behind schedule with a crash landing and poor quality is because CPM incentivizes variation. It incentivizes variation. It incentivizes waste. It incentivizes a lack of transparency. It is a chaotic system, and it all comes from CPM scheduling. It is time for this to stop. There is a better way. Now, I've talked to you before about Takt planning, and so I don't know exactly how I should finish this podcast. I'll kind of make it up as I go here, but Takt planning says that we, for the most part, on the appropriate level of detail, which is Takt planning, know you can, with the system, identify the Takt zones, the sequence, the flow, and you can identify the right Takt time or drumbeat for the project and the right throughput of each Takt area. Meaning, will this interior space, can I produce 10,000 square feet of finished interior space every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks? Meaning, what is your throughput of the system? With a couple of key variables, meaning your Takt time, your process duration, which is your Takt train, and your throughput, the throughput of the overall system, you can build a project schedule that is buildable. And when you actually follow that flow and stick to those dates and get rid of that rare variation, then manpower counts, costs, and materials all start to reduce. And you remember, and here's the thing for all of you lean practitioners, if you're questioning me, great, love it. But remember, what is the mother of all waste in lean? It is overproduction and it is inventory. Any system that creates overproduction and excess inventory is creating all of the other wastes. In CPM, you're jockeying things around, and so contractors have to anticipate when they're going to start because it's going to change daily. What do they do in that instance? They start to bring out more materials, more manpower, the costs go up. We start throwing resources at problems. That creates a spiral effect that ruins the rest of the system and slows you down. So when you use Takt systems, you keep on a rhythm, a steady flow, you hold your dates, and you're on a Takt time, and you focused on throughput, and you've opted on that system. You finish as you go. You remove roadblocks ahead of yourself, and it's a proactive system. From that system, Last Planner can be successful. From that system, Scrum can be successful. If CPM has to be used and you're holding CPM accountable and forcing it to be in a flow, you can be successful because the supply chains are stabilized. And now on a short interval production schedule basis, your crews have a chance to win. It doesn't even, and here's the third inspired point. If you have recently bought the fantastic book, The Lean Builder, or the book Scrum, and you're making your supers do it, and if they are still saying, which they probably are, it's still not working as great as I want to, it is not Last Planner's fault. It is not Scrum's fault. They can't even win the game because the hoop is so high in the air that nobody could slam dunk the ball. Meaning there is no system good enough that can win when the schedule is always changing. Do your trade partners say, well, you're always changing the schedule, you're always moving me here? That's because you're using CPM, guys. Guys and gals, if you would use Takt, then your short interval production scheduling systems such as Last Planner and Scrum would work. That's the bottom line right there. And we have to get into a system where we have a fighting chance, and that is Takt. Let's go back to the river of waste analogy. I think I told you the other day in a podcast. If I didn't, it's coming out in the book. Most people think the river of waste analogy, where there's a boat, a stream or a river rather, and there's roadblocks, that historically what happens in construction is people raise the water level. That ain't what happens. We're told to lower the water level and remove the roadblocks, but the water's going so darn fast and it's so darn chaotic. Nobody has time to remove the roadblocks because we're going too fast. So that's when they add water. That's when they add resources. That's when they add materials. That's when they add money. And that's why we crash land projects. It is not the reduction of the water level that wins us on a project. It is the stabilization of the right water level. Let me say that again. It is not the reduction of the water level. It is the stabilization of the water level is where we win in construction. Period. End of story. Once you stabilize the flow, the start dates, and the takt time of any project, all of your expenses begin to reduce. All of your wastes begin to reduce. And here's the key part. All of your roadblocks raise to the surface. In a CPM and Last Planner system, your roadblocks are still hidden. In a Takt and Last Planner system, your roadblocks are exposed. In a Takt and Takt system, your roadblocks are exposed. In a Takt and Scrum system, your roadblocks are exposed. That is the key. That is the key point. And if you learn anything from me ever, and I hope you do, because I'm here to help, the stability of your schedule, the stabilization of your project makes everything else work. You cannot just throw Last Planner or Scrum into a chaotic system and expect it to do its magic. You need to put it into a stable system with Takt planning. The reason I brought this up to you today is that so many people are like, I'm doing pull planning, I'm doing LPS, I'm doing these things, I'm doing my huddles, it's still not working. I need help. How can I do it better? The pull plan scares me. And every time when I analyze it, okay, let me give you a good example. Somebody called me the other day. They're doing housing units with typical housing floor plates with typical models, meaning I'm losing the words right now, but that room type is repeated throughout the building. And they're having chaos and variation. And they're like, hey, I want to go do a pull plan for this. Okay, I love you. You got a huge building. You got 6 months to finish. You don't need a pull plan. Everyone knows the sequence. What you need is flow. What you need is stability. What you need is commitment. And what you need is roadblocks coming to the surface and everybody heading in the same direction. 80% of the time, okay, hold on. So Last Planner is universally able to be used everywhere. Scrum is universally able to be used everywhere. 95% of the time, what a project needs first and foremost is Takt planning. And if you need help, please reach out for help. I mean, the book is coming out. I'm working overtime to get that thing out. I'm really hoping that we can have it edited and out in its first draft in a month. I've already got the cover design and everything. The Audible, they're going to take 17 years to get the audio out. It's an absolute nightmare. But I've hired a production studio to get that going. Absolutely, you should look forward to that. All of the slides and the research will then go into an online Kajabi series for Takt planning. We are going to get this out for you. In the meantime, if you have projects, reach out to help. Give me a call. Why am I telling you this? Did I tell you this to make money? Sure, maybe. But the main thing is, if you are a small or mid-sized general contractor, or if you're a big team and you're like, we need more capacity, we don't have enough trained people, we're stretched thin. Takt is your answer. It takes 33% of the time to run a Takt system as any other system. Even as much as I love Last Planner takes time. Pull plans take time. Consolidating the information takes time. Running that system takes time. Does it work? Yes. Is it labor intensive? Yes. Does Takt work? Yes. Is it labor intensive? No. Are they both effective? Yes. Does every project need Takt? Yes. This system, when properly implemented, will change your life. I've built projects with it. I know it's successful. It always works when you have the right systems. And here's when it will work. If you have an open-minded superintendent and somebody holding the team accountable, that's when it will work. And you can go implement it. And I have this is not bragging, I have successfully implemented this in a company, in a $1.5 billion company, all across all of their 50 plus projects. The system works. And I'm just excited for you to be able to take this journey. You know, I first learned about Takt planning, after the Pentagon, the Hensel Phelps Pentagon renovation used it, I think it was 2002. And then I got to see in 2004, 5, and 6 some of the templates that they used. I never copied them. I never stole them. I never got access to the templates. But I saw the templates. I made my own templates. And I implemented it at the cancer center, at the research laboratory, at the pharmacy, at the office building, at all of the other projects where I was a general superintendent, and then in this company. Every time we do this and scale it, it works. And it's understandable by the entire team. Let me close out with this because this is the fourth inspired point. A very wise man once told me, if you can't see the plan in 5 to 30 seconds on a project, then you don't know the plan. Takt will enable you to do that. It will respect workers. It will stabilize your project site through trained teams, and it will preserve your families because that is a system that creates stability with everything. It is the answer for you. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.